What's up, guys? All right, look, I wanted to make a video about something I was thinking about. So when we think about, everything that holds the world together, when we think about the laws of physics, these things that we can explore with science and try to answer the questions of, why when this happens, et cetera, et cetera. The things we could see, we could feel, and then there's these elements of science that's beyond our comprehension, but yet we can make guesses about what is probably going on, and then we can test those guesses, etc. But when we think about the entire universe, on how it's actually held together, like where do these laws of physics come from? What actually keeps the system going? Like why? I mean, what says just because something happened, just because something like the laws of physics worked yesterday, why should they work today or tomorrow? What actually holds that together? Now, this concept, and I don't want it to make this too abstract, but this concept is what we think about as God. So the Christian belief is that God created the world, and that it's through God that holds everything together. The universe and all the things that we hold dear. Okay? And so your purpose in life is that you're created by God, and that your purpose is to know God, to love God, to live this life with this purpose. And I get that, if you don't believe in God, then this is going to be a very foreign concept to you. But this whole idea of even where we get the idea that humans have rights, we believe those rights come from God because we're created in God's image, etc. And when you take God out of this picture, everything just kind of starts to collapse. You don't have this purpose anymore. But even if you don't believe in God, most atheists are very moral, ethical people, right? Because they still follow this natural law. They still act as if people have rights given to them by, something other than themselves. Does that make sense? So I get really frustrated when I'm discussing morals or whatever with somebody, and they tend to go down this path that morals are relative, but that can't be true, right? Or at least I'm not going to argue with you if you think morals are relative, because that means you think child trafficking, maybe it's wrong, maybe it's not, etc. No, it's wrong. It's wrong. Just you don't have to be a rocket scientist or some Greek philosopher to figure that out. You can just know that's wrong, okay? And why is it wrong? Because we have a moral law and authority above us. So this idea that there's a misconception about the Christian God that, God is some kind of tyrant king who just gives rules, you better follow him, you better worship him, etc. You're going to be thrown into hell. That's not God, okay? You see, the rules are that we pursue goodness because goodness is good. God is the ultimate source of goodness. Any deviation from goodness is what is considered a sin, or what they use is that word, which has kind of been watered down and confused over the years, but that's the idea. And so any deviation from goodness is wrong. So it's not like it's this force of good versus evil as much as it's this force of good versus those that would twist the goodness. And when you turn away from the goodness is where you lead to evil. So the thing is, when we were created, we had this union with God, this kind of way to connect with God in this perfect form, I guess. But we fractured it, and we fractured it with our own choice, our own free will, which was a beautiful gift from God because we weren't meant to be robots. We're meant to choose goodness freely, to choose God freely. But by going our own path and our own way, we turn away from goodness at times. Now, sometimes we don't. But even with little things, when you turn away from the good, in just little ways, it can provide a butterfly effect into the universe. And so that maybe your apathy at your work, and the day that you don't do a 100% good job, could have a rippling effect through the universe and cause mass destruction at some point, you know. Or maybe you think your addiction to pornography is not that big of a deal, but in 10 years from now, you're divorced and your kids are raised by some other dad, you know, and they're confused and you can't really trace back to where the problem started, right? Or maybe, you know, you've got a prescription for some pain pills and you wouldn't think it's that big of a deal to take an extra one here or there. But 10 years later and you're an addict. Like, there's all these little things that we do that we deviate away from what we know is the best, and it leads to destruction. Well, this is hell. So hell does not necessarily mean somewhere you go after you die. Although I'm not saying it doesn't exist, because hell exists here and now, and we can see that clearly when we look around. I mean, look around the world today. What's going on? We have people without purpose. They're looking to fill their lives with some type of outside purpose that tends to just lead to more destruction and more evil. When God says there's a better way, he says, I've created you with a plan. I have a plan for you. A plan for you to do good, to prosper, to not fail. That's what God promises us. But when we turn away from that, that's when the shit hits the fan. And so what Christian faith says is that Jesus came to earth. And as God incarnate, to share our sufferings, to take upon himself the sufferings of man, and to provide us a way to reconnect with God in a perfect union once again. Now, one other thing. A lot of people struggle with this. They feel abandoned by God. And maybe they've even, because of their feelings of abandonment, they've just decided they don't believe anymore. I get that. I understand that. But check this out, man. One of the weirdest things in the world is that when Jesus was on the cross, he felt abandoned by God. And he cried out, why have you forsaken me? Now, there's lots of theories behind this. One is, he was repeating a psalm. I could be wrong. I think it's Psalm 22, but I might be wrong on that. Which, that psalm was almost like a prophecy of what was to come, and it's kind of crazy. And so I think he was pointing people back to that. But at the same time, to take on the full suffering of man meant he also felt our abandonment. That abandonment is not God putting that on us. It is our fractured lives. And those fractured lives is exactly what Jesus came to heal. He came to heal your fractured life. And it may just seem like religious mumbo jumbo, or it may be true. And that's a question you got to ask yourself. And I would encourage you to pray about it and really seek the answer. What do you feel is right in your heart? What do you know to be true? What holds the world together? Go outside, no matter the weather, sunshine or rain. Get into nature a little bit and really look deep down inside and ask yourself, what is true? All right, guys. Hope this was helpful.